Dr. Mack. Without further ado, the show is yours.
Sounds good. Thanks, Charles. And good morning or good afternoon, everybody, depending on where you're located. And welcome to this presentation of the Virtual Adjunct. As Charles has said, I've done this presentation a few times over the past couple years for Career Development Week, and I think it is something that will hopefully give you some really good information about online teaching, specifically just kind of the structure of online teaching and what it means at the Chicago School, but also in hopes of giving you some motivation, some ideas, some thoughts about going out there to other schools and other universities for online teaching opportunities, because as you'll see in the first few slides, online teaching is truly a large part of higher education nowadays. If we go back 10 years, maybe 15, when things started to just come online, forgive the pun, with email and different things of that nature, I don't think there was a sense that online teaching and online learning would become such a large part of higher education, but it is, and it continues to grow. And what that means for you are opportunities in teaching, not only at the Chicago School, but all over the place. It provides incredible flexibility. It provides competitive, salary, and just opportunity to get out there and engage students in different programs at different universities without having to up and move your entire family or yourself or your life to another state or to another country. So that's one of the huge benefits of it. A little bit about myself. Some of you may already know me as a dissertation writing expert with the National Center for Academic and Dissertation Excellence, otherwise known as NCAID. If you are doctoral students or are going to be a doctoral student or have been a doctoral student, you likely have encountered me in that capacity with your dissertation. And I'm a certified online instructor at the Chicago School. I teach the course known as TOPS, which you'll see in one of my upcoming slides. TOPS stands for Teaching Online, Pedagogy and Standards. It's a required course that you're going to have to take at the Chicago School in order to be able to teach online, but we'll get to that in a few minutes, and I'll answer questions about that as well. And also, please feel free to engage me during the course of the presentation. It doesn't just need to be me yipping and yapping the whole time. If you have a question, you can signal it to Charles, and he can interrupt me, or he can watch the chat box there and let me know if there's a question, and we'll answer it at that time. So please feel free to do that, and I'll be able to answer questions at the end as well. Let me go ahead on to my next slide here. So as Charles knows, because he's seen this presentation a few hundred times at this point, I always start off with hoping to get a little bit of participation from you guys right off the bat in terms of why do you want to teach. Now, not all of you on the call are going to be teaching immediately. You may have to finish your degree programs or go through TOPS, or maybe you're just starting to think about teaching as a potential opportunity for you, maybe not even part of your career path completely, but maybe as a supplemental career to kind of give you a little bit of extra income, extra experience, build your CV, so on and so forth. But would anybody like to share their reasons why you would like to teach, something that we can share with the group? It looks like we got 24, 25 people on the line here, so if you're willing to do so, signal Charles to unmute you or type something in the chat box. I'll give you a minute or so if somebody would like to share. What is drawing you to teaching? And if you're typing or if you're sharing, please do so in the chat box. For me, just in my personal experience, the one thing about that draws me to teaching, and this may be similar for a lot of you, is that in the midst of teaching, I never stop learning, and so I get a chance to be at the cutting edge of all of this stuff on a regular basis. So I never really leave the school. My wife really thinks that I should stop getting, degrees and certificates and everything, but I can't stop. It's almost a hobby, I guess. I'm seeing a couple comments come into the chat box. So, Latasha, just to give back knowledge that has been obtained. That one is a really good one, and I don't, believe it or not, I don't necessarily hear that one that often when people share to give back. You've been given a lot, you've had great opportunities hopefully through your schooling, and you want to give back, which I think is a fantastic thing to do. And think about online learning as a really huge way to reach out to people that traditionally may not have been able to access school in the past, and now online learning gives them that opportunity. I'm seeing I have been teaching on site, so I would like to learn how to engage students virtually. That was Reno, and that's going to be really interesting stuff. You'll get a lot of that type of instruction and feedback about how to engage students virtually when you take the TOPS course. So I'll talk about that for sure a lot. Michelle, the excitement of discovery and inspiring others, it's huge. It's really huge. None of us would be teaching if we didn't want to feel that rush of inspiration that we have when we engage our students and when our students engage us. I always tell myself if I ever lose that feeling, then I really need to stop teaching at that point. Let's see, Michaela, I really enjoy learning and interacting with students. I have taught earlier education and love working with older students. And you're brave. I don't know if I would teach earlier education. It's not my skill set, but that's fantastic. That's wonderful. Donna, I started thinking about teaching the last year of my bachelor's. I think I would enjoy it and could offer my experiences to help others. That's a big point too. All of you on the phone in some way or another have a collection of experiences, professional, personal, social, intellectual, emotional. Depending on what part of psychology you're in, you have a lot to offer, and that means a lot, let me tell you, to online learning, bringing that expertise. Let's see, my experiences as an MFT is leading me to help those who are not sure what to do. The struggles of going through dissertation process is a topic class that I would like to explore. And of course my role in NCAID, helping students through their dissertation is a big part of what I do. Tia, I love education. Caroline, I'm still not sure if I want to be a teacher. I have a fear of public speaking, so online teaching works for me. You know what? That really is an important thing to recognize about online learning. If you do have a fear of public speaking, it doesn't even have to be a fear of public speaking. It can just be you don't like to get up in front of the class. Nothing wrong with that at all. But think about all the teachers in the past that may not have gone on to teach specifically because of that, right? And so online learning gives that opportunity to access those of you who are experts in your field and give you an opportunity to teach as well and give the students an opportunity to benefit from your expertise. I think that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. So we got a lot of comments. That's fantastic. That's exactly what I want that slide to do. So you want to keep that in mind for online teaching. Online teaching gives you a whole bunch of flexibility that you don't necessarily get with on-ground teaching. And I don't know if any of you had ever been reading about online learning again over the past 10 years or 15 years, but there was a point at which people were saying, oh, online learning can never possibly be as good as traditional learning, going into a classroom and learning in front of a room with your students and your teacher. And it's just simply not true. I was one of those people early on in my career. I thought to myself, this is really never going to take off. And as it has evolved and as I have become more involved with it, it has its own rewards, it has its own benefits, and it has its own challenges, which is exactly what traditional learning does too. It has its own rewards, its own benefits, and its own challenges. Both of these fields of teaching have their own specific pieces that you have to work through as you're teaching. So, and online learning has certainly become probably a lot better than it was originally as we've learned how to integrate online teaching into our curriculum. So some of the topics that we're going to, on the next slide here, some of the topics that we're going to be discussing today, and again, feel free to ask a question at any point. I've got some interesting trends in online education, some statistics that were published in 2014 and the early part of 2015, so some recent interesting trends. What to expect in a career in online teaching, and these things are kind of a general overview of some of the structure of online teaching that you can anticipate. I can answer specific questions to the Chicago School, but you may encounter different experiences at different universities depending on how they have things set up for you. So keep that in mind. Who is typically recruited to teach in online schools? And I can tell you that it's a vast pool of individuals with different expertises that are approached for this. Some of the tools for teaching online, and again, this is some of the specifics that we use at the Chicago School for teaching online, but generally speaking, you will encounter these regularly wherever you go. Some of the challenges and successes, and of course, if you have questions, we don't have to wait till the end. Keep them coming as you go. Okay. All right. So some interesting trends in online education. First off, just so you kind of get an overview of some of the common online course types that you are going to see. And this really hasn't changed. These are really the four categories of learning that most of you have already encountered yourselves as students and will be interested in encountering as you pursue some teaching opportunities. So as I was saying before, the traditional type of course, right, is what's called the brick and mortar classroom. You physically go to a school, sit in a chair, you've got the whiteboard or the overhead projector or whatever you have, and there's nothing delivered online to you. There's no technology. Everything is within the classroom. Even anything that is technology-based, like a movie or some type of listening exercise, if you're doing a language class or whatever, is all contained within the actual classroom itself. And the content is delivered to you in that classroom, orally, in writing, in assignments, quizzes, tests, all that kind of stuff. Now, some of you on the phone might be interested in doing that, and you should absolutely investigate teaching opportunities at the Chicago School. There's a very large adjunct population at the Chicago School that the school depends on for teaching courses. Before I joined NCATE, I was actually the director of adjunct faculty at the Chicago School, so I can tell you there are classes that need to be taught on a regular basis, so definitely investigate that. If it's a web-facilitated course, you're looking at somewhere between 1 and almost 30% of the course will have some online component. So you may have a course now, in fact, that uses web-based technology to facilitate your course, but you're still in the classroom. You might have you might use Canvas a little bit for some of your assignments. You might put your paper or your assignment or your presentation in a Dropbox, something of that nature. So that's a web-facilitated course, but still mostly traditional in the classroom. Then we get to what I personally like as one of my favorites, and if you can find a blended course, that's a great opportunity. You kind of get the best of both worlds. Most of the course is going to be online, at least in some cases, anywhere from the 30% all the way up to just under 80%. But you may have some face-to-face meetings, usually that are at a reduced amount. You might have, some of you on the phone might be in an executive program where most of your course is online, but you're going to come to Chicago, for example, 3 weekends in the semester. So you'll have a few face-to-face meetings, but the majority of your materials, your online discussions, and so on and so forth is presented to you online in Canvas. And then, of course, the online, the total online learning. Everything is online. There's no face-to-face meeting. If you do have a face-to-face meeting, it still is typically done through some type of technology, like GoToMeeting or Skype or something of that nature. And if you guys take the TOPS course, as you consider teaching at the Chicago School, that is an example of an all-online course. It's a course that's designed to give you insight into online teaching, and in and of itself, it is all online. So you get the full feel for that. But I also know that most of you on the phone probably have had an all-online course at some point at the Chicago School, or even maybe in some of your previous education as well. So I don't want to preach to the choir too much, but those are the four types of courses that you will generally see as you investigate teaching. You know, from my own experience, I would encourage each and every one of you to try all four categories if you can, or at least seek out something that would maybe give you a taste of each of those four categories and determine what you like best or what a good mix is for you. Okay, I'll go on to the next slide. So here is some updated information about the question that was asked: does online learning fit strategically into an institution? And this was updated very late 2014, and the report itself actually came out at the beginning of this year, so some pretty recent statistics. If you, Charles also knows I mention this website all the time. If you're interested in a really great website about higher learning, it's called InsideHigherEd.com, InsideHigherEd.com. They have great articles and blogs and everything like that. And on top of that, they have a fantastic job search engine on that website. InsideHigherEd.com is a great tool. I don't know if you want to pop that into the chat box, Charles, when you get a chance, but InsideHigherEd.com is the link. They did this report, updated in 2014, beginning of 2015, where 64% of chief academic officers agree that online learning is a fit strategically. So you generally, and you can see over time of this survey how that has really continued to increase from 11 years ago or so, 13 years ago. Steadily from just under 50%, and it has its ups and downs, but generally speaking, 64%. Well, why should we care about that? Well, every institution, or most every institution, I would venture to say, has a strategic plan, and that strategic plan impacts not only the students, but the employees, faculty, adjuncts, teaching opportunities. And so as online learning continues to dominate strategic planning, or at least be a very big part of strategic planning, those opportunities will continue to be integrated into the universities or the schools that you're looking at. Okay, and data seems to reveal also that, oops, I want to go back one, sorry. Data also seems to reveal that online learning continues to increase in importance. So it really is becoming a functional part of higher education. And I've been teaching for the better part of 20 years now. Maybe I'm going on, I guess I'm going on 24 years now at this point. And so I've seen a lot of universities integrate online learning into their curriculum. And the Chicago School, and perhaps I'm a little biased, but the Chicago School takes online learning extremely seriously. So there's great development of the courses. Hopefully most of you have experienced some good stuff. You're always going to have challenges in online courses as well, but the TOPS course is meant to help instructors really prepare for online learning. And so as we continue to talk about that, you'll start to see where that can fit into your own strategic plan. Okay? Now let me go to the next page here. Same thing with this data. How many students are learning online? You see a very similar steady increase. And when you think about it, we now have 33%, and actually I even think it's a little bit more now. I think we're closer to 40% of students take at least one online course. And when you compare that way back in 2003, that number was at only 10%. So you're seeing just some really strong growth in students learning online, or at least taking at least one online course of some sort. And that doesn't even have to be officially registered at a university. Have any of you heard of a MOOC? M-O-O-C. It's a massively offered online course. That's what it's called. I'm going to type in the little, now we got everybody in here, okay. Let me just type that in. It's called a MOOC, Massively Offered Online Course. If you've ever taken one, they're fun. They're generally free. They're massive. That's exactly why they get the M in there, because there's usually several thousand students who are taking the course at the same time you are. It's usually not for credit or not for any type of grade, and it's usually free, and it's just for your own edification, for your own education. So you can see that people will at least may have taken one MOOC in their life, and that counts toward that statistic of how many students are taking online courses. So consistent growth, very consistent growth. And you see it matches with the red line, which is kind of overall education as students are learning in both traditional and online learning environments. So massively open, thank you. That's what it's called, not massively offered. It's massive open online course. Charles just posted a link. Check it out. They're really cool. They're pretty fun. So massive open online course is what it stands for. Let me go to the next page. But then on the flip side of all of that growth in online learning, you have some confliction, some conflict amongst the faculty, conflicted institutions. Institutions that have online course offerings feel more confident about the quality of online teaching. So learning outcomes in an online course compared face-to-face, institutions with online offering. You can see now that basically a vast majority of the statistics compares traditional learning to online learning as generally being the same, with of course some people feeling it's superior and others feeling that it's inferior. These charts would have shown quite a difference 10, 13, 15 years ago, where online learning kind of got the rap of being, you know, oh, you're going to a degree mill, you're just going to get somebody to mail you your certificate, and you won't have to do anything. Right? That has changed significantly, and you can see it by this chart here, even between 2012 and 2013 with a slight uptick in terms of being the same. Now, the next slide shows, but at different institutions, a different picture is shown if they don't offer any online courses. So the previous slide showed you opinions of faculty and so on if they did offer an online course, but at institutions with no online offerings, meaning nobody is having any experience with online education, or the benefits or the challenges thereof, you see a much different picture where a large chunk of the people who responded said that it was inferior to traditional learning. Okay, much different picture. So you have institutions that probably still do not offer online learning in any way, shape, or format, and there's a little bit of a hesitancy to consider online learning as equal to traditional learning. Okay? And certainly some of you may agree with that, and in some cases there are certain courses that may necessitate traditional learning. I certainly think if you are in the medical field and you are becoming a surgeon, you are more than likely going to benefit from a traditional course where you're able to practice procedures in a scientific and medical way, and you're not doing it online. Other types of courses, other types of fields allow for a better online management of student courses. When I was pursuing my doctorate degree, it was kind of split. I was able to do 40% of my doctorate work online, but I had to do 60% on ground. But even those on ground ones were blended, like we saw in one of those earlier slides. So I had a little bit of online even sprinkled throughout that 60% that was required. So, you know, that split, that balance is probably a good spot for institutions to consider. I'm going to look at the, yeah, you work for your online education. Donna, yeah, you definitely work for an online education. But I think that is something that is a fairly recent piece to online education. A recent, and I'm talking about, you know, within the past 5 or 6 years, when online education has really started to show its worth to higher education. And, you know, certifying organizations, accrediting organizations now have specific accreditation policies for online learning. I mean, the Chicago School does not put out its online courses just haphazardly. They have to go through a very rigorous and tough and very focused accreditation process, and then the accrediting organization can say, yes, you can put this course out for students. Right? So I think that has evolved a lot too. So it's a very rigorous, very tight, very focused process to get these classes out, which is really good, really, really good. And I think that has helped online learning grow a lot. I'm still all for on-ground learning too. I love going to a campus and, you know, you grab a cup of coffee and you hang out with your classmates and your colleagues. And I think we've just gotten to a point in the United States where it might just be a blended type of experience. You'll have half of this, half of that. And you only can benefit from that. You learn a lot in both areas. Let me go to the next slide. So what can you expect? Now that we've shared a little bit of those interesting stats on, and if you go to InsideHigherEd.com, you'll find the whole report from which I took those couple slides. And if you're interested in that kind of stuff, it's fascinating to see the different types of attitudes that are out there by other institutions and by faculty. So check it out. So what can you expect in online learning? So you probably would kind of have guessed most of these, but it's a good review because there are some times when it can be a little bit surprising. So obviously, online teaching can be done from anywhere that you have an internet connection, right? So you have the ability to be so flexible and get it done anywhere that you want to be, that you're not tied to actually physically traveling to a campus, right? And that's a real benefit for a lot of people, okay? Including myself. I'm on the Chicago campus, so I'm downtown fairly frequently in the city, but I'm generally work from my home office because I have a disabled daughter that needs me to be near home if I need to go to school to get her, to bring her home, or if she needs something. So I need to be able to have that flexibility in my life. It is a huge benefit to me that online learning can take place in a variety of different ways as long as you have an internet connection. It's fast-paced, very fast-paced. I would generally assume, again, that most of you on the call are either in an online program at the Chicago School or have just recently completed an online program at the Chicago School, and you know how much you work in the time allotted for online programs at the Chicago School. 7 weeks. You have 7 weeks to get everything done in all of your courses. So it is extremely fast-paced. You take a typical 15-week semester in an on-ground class and you shrink it to 7 weeks, and then you keep doing 7 weeks over and over and over again every online term, and you're going at a pretty good clip. You're going at a pretty good clip. So definitely fast-paced, not only for you, but for the teacher too, for the instructor. It's always changing. What does that mean? Well, technology, always changing. There's always something that is changing. The learning management systems, are you doing it on a tablet? Are you doing it on a laptop? Are you able to connect? How do you connect? You've got, not only do you have the class now and stuff, right, but you have social media. Are you connecting to that? Are you on, not only do you have Skype nowadays and GoToMeeting, but you have Periscope, which is another app that I'm just recently learning about presenting on, and there's another one called Blab, and there's all this kind of stuff that you can access these types of things, and you know, it's intense. It changes a lot. And I want to give credence to a comment that Donna just posted. We talked about being fast-paced, and if you see the chat box, it says that pace often takes students by surprise, and hours devoted to school are far higher than some expect. And I don't think I could have nailed that higher on the head than you did, Donna, right there. The pace at which online learning occurs can often surprise the student. And quite frankly, as you prepare to teach online, it can really surprise you too as the instructor, because not only are the students expected to produce, but you are also expected to produce as well as an instructor, and you've got to keep up with that pace too. Online teaching is also very solitary. It is. It's a lonely endeavor. You're not getting that cup of coffee and hanging out with your colleagues in the hallway, or you're not seeing your other teachers or your other friends, at school, your colleagues. I feel that all the time. I'm downtown enough, but I do miss being always on a campus every single day. I'm at home. I'm in my home office, or I'm standing in my kitchen right now, or I'm, out in the backyard, but I'm always alone. So online teaching is generally a solitary endeavor because it's you and the computer and the students who are dispersed all over the planet. You've got students who are not only in the United States, but in different countries too. So you're all over the place. So it's solitary. What is the nature of online teaching? This little wheel kind of gives you a good little evolution of what you can experience in some of the feelings and some of the processes of online teaching. It's extremely structured. So what does that mean? Well, at least at the Chicago School, the courses are developed for you. You come in to teach them. If you've had any experience teaching in a traditional classroom, it generally is you that's creating the course, with some guidelines, of course, but you come up with your syllabus, you print it up, you hand it out. When I was teaching on ground before I joined the Chicago School, I was a professor of French, language and learning. I would create my syllabus every semester. I would change it a little bit, maybe add a picture here and there, add some type of field trip where we could go to a French restaurant, something like that, right? And I would do that every single semester, and I would change it and make it look nice each and every time. Well, that, TOPS, when I teach TOPS every term, it's all there for me all the time. It's generated, it's saved, it's part of the master shell. I go in, I change a couple dates. Conversations, of course, are different every term, but the content doesn't change, and the points don't change, and the process doesn't change. So very structured. Quick turnaround. That goes back to, that speaks back to the pace at which online learning is taking place. As a student, you have an expectation, right, in your first week, and I'm sure this rings true for many of you. You log into Canvas on Monday. By Wednesday, you have to have your discussions posted. By Sunday, you have to have your assignment in, and by Monday, you start all over again. So really quick pace. Same expectations for you as a potential online instructor. You have to be on every day. You've got to show that you're present in the class. For small assignments, you need to turn around the grade in a day or two. Usually within 24 hours, you should be able to turn around the grade. You have to get in there and post on the discussion boards, make sure you're monitoring it. All that kind of stuff. At the Chicago School, you cannot go 2 days in a row without logging into your class as an instructor. You have to be on. You can't be gone for 2 days. You must log on. They monitor that. Okay, so those are types of things. Accountability, that speaks to accountability. You have to be there. You have to be a present instructor. You have to monitor the discussions. You have a responsibility to ensure that you're responding to each student. That can be overwhelming at times. So what if you have 20 students in your class? Before you know it, the discussion board can go up into the thousands of posts. Well, there are some things that you will have at your disposal that will prevent that, but you are expected to be there, and you are expected to monitor, and you are expected to participate. The nature of online teaching is applied. That's where we talked a couple slides ago about your expertise, wanting to give back, wanting to share your daily expertise, your professional guidance, your knowledge, your intelligence, your ideas, and your recommendations. The students want that. They crave that. They want to know what's happening out there in your field of psychology. How is my instructor going to show me what it's like out there, and not just inside a book, inside a theory, or inside a concept of some sort? What's happening out there? Online teaching is deliverable based, not only for the student, but for you too. So again, you got to turn your grades around in 24 hours. For larger assignments, You have 3 days to turn those around, and generally speaking, those are all easily trackable in at least in our system in Canvas. You know, the system will show when the instructor logged in and what the instructor did, and that's all part of your performance. It's all part of your performance review. So they're deliverable based, and that sometimes leads to strict guidelines, which again speaks to, you know, you can't be gone more than 2 days. You've got to log in. You've got to make sure you're in on a regular basis and returning feedback promptly to the students within that week-to-week period. So that's kind of the nature of online teaching, and it's you know, it's fun to be in too, but it also has those guidelines that help you. And I think those guidelines actually do help, because what we could fall victim to is way too much flexibility. I mean, it's great to be at home, it's great to be at Starbucks or whatever while you're doing your online teaching or learning, but what happens if you're like, oh, heck, I'll just skip off on this week and we'll come back in a couple weeks? You can't have that either. Then you start losing the integrity of the course itself. So these guidelines are meant to help, and you will more than likely encounter these guidelines regularly at any institution that you teach at. So with that in mind, we have just some conversation about who is recruit. I suppose I should stop for a minute. Are there any questions yet? The next few slides are going to start to get into the TOPS course and actual, you know, some of the structure of online teaching at the Chicago School. So there might be some more questions at that point. But anything now so far, although these past few slides have just been kind of regular old slides. Go ahead and feel free to type it into the chat box, and I'll try to keep an eye on it too. But who amongst you is recruited to teach online? Well, it's a pretty good list. I mean, any of you online, I would venture to say, would certainly be qualified at some point, depending on where you are at your degree process, to teach online. If it's at the Chicago School, that's great. If it's not, there's so many opportunities out there, you know, you can check it out. But if you're a content specialist, you're professional, a lot of retired professionals too go into online teaching. If you've been in the field for a long time and you're retired but you want to keep your hand in the game a little bit, you know, online teaching is certainly appealing to you. Research professionals, recent grads, so that's probably a lot of you, or you're getting close, right? The Chicago School does typically require that you do have a doctorate level degree to teach an online course in the online programs. So I don't necessarily know that has changed since I was director of adjunct faculty, but you can certainly investigate. Some departments may have different guidelines on that. But as far as I know, teaching an online course at the Chicago School requires a doctorate of some sort. And of course, you've got to complete the TOPS course as well. Now, that is not the case at all schools, so you've got to do your investigation. Remember, online learning should not limit you to the Chicago School. Great opportunities at the Chicago School, but also great opportunities all over the place as you prepare your careers. Okay. Does your degree have to be conferred to apply? No, it does not. Yeah, no. You can apply, and the department and the school will know that it's being conferred. So, yeah. The most important thing for those of you who want to teach at the Chicago School, if you finished your degree or are getting it conferred, so on and so forth, is to complete the TOPS course. You cannot teach until you complete the TOPS course. Now, the TOPS course is run every online term. Every 7 weeks, there's a TOPS course running, right? So you'll never miss it. It's always there. You just have to decide how you can fit it into your schedule. And take time to consider fitting it into your schedule, because it's a regular course. So you're going to have to do the work. And there is a specific, you have to pass with 80% or higher in order to be certified to teach online at the Chicago School. It's also great to have on your resume that you're certified by the Chicago School to teach online. It's a nice little thing too. Let me go further here. Rachel makes an excellent point. Excellent point. Don't forget about the places that are willing to hire instructors that are ABD, but that they're in the process of doing their their doctoral work. Okay, ABD, all but dissertation, and you might be hired to teach within that time frame as long as you are moving towards completion of your doctoral degree. So that's an excellent point, Rachel. Thank you for sharing that. So keep that in mind too. We'll get more into TOPS in 1 second, but 1 minute I have to plug in my computer because it's in the process of dying, and we will lose me if we don't. Hold on 1 second. All right. Okay, let me go on to my next slide. Tools of the trade. So this is going to vary quite a bit depending on where you're at, but I'm talking about a little bit at TCSPP, giving you a little bit of insight. So TOPS, obviously, teaching online pedagogy and standards. Canvas is our learning management system. You may have already experienced other learning management systems like Blackboard or Angel, or a couple of other tools. eCollege was one that we had used at one point. So whatever the learning management system is, you will become familiar with it at your teaching institution, and you'll get more proficient in navigating it. Obviously, at the Chicago School, we use a lot of GoToMeeting, a lot of Skype. VoiceThread is another option, which is kind of a neat presentation tool. Most of you have smartphones or tablets or certainly portable devices, powerful laptops where you are constantly connected to your students or connected to information. That's the world in which we live. So these tools have actually made it much easier for online learning to take place at a variety of institutions as well as you. I even see now online that there are some cars out there now that actually have dedicated Wi-Fi hotspots built into the car. So when you're driving along, I'm pretty sure Chevy might actually even be one of them, while you're driving along, you have a connection. So, you know, as long as you're not driving and teaching and somebody else is driving, you might even be able to get connected while you're on the go. So, you know, online learning is happening all over the place at any given moment. Oops. What are some of, I see we're kind of down, according to my watch here, we're down to the last 15 minutes or so, so please continue to ask some questions if you'd like. Challenges and successes. The challenges and successes of online learning, obviously the successes are, there's a lot more outreach, major flexibility in your schedule. You're always at the forefront of innovative technologies. You're almost learning without even really knowing that you're learning about new technologies because you have to. You have to integrate those technologies into your career, so you're getting almost a free training session, I guess, as part of your teaching duties into what technologies are out there. Rena has asked, where can we take the TOPS course? So you'll be able to find the TOPS course on the main TCSPP website if you go under the link for the National Center for Teaching and Learning. It should be pretty visible on the main website. There's a way to sign up for that. Right now, Fall 2 is running, so we're already in process of the class, but there'll be another class offered for the Spring 1 term. And then again every other term after that. So whenever it fits best into your schedule, definitely, and there's no cost to it, right? So it's free, which is even better. Online learning and online teaching has engaging discussions. You'll find, I find at least, that the students are more willing to write a lot more in their answers than you might traditionally have spoken to you in a regular classroom. What are some of the challenges? Well, are you always on? And that's a challenge, I think, in any case in our society right now. Are we always connected? Are we too connected? Are you looking at your phone all the time? Are you always checking your email, checking your courses? You have to step back and say, all right, I, as a teacher, am going to give my students some guidelines. I will only be online between these hours and these hours each day. Okay? If you're posting something at 2:30 in the morning, do not expect a response from me until later in the day, unless, of course, you're up at 2:30 in the morning, and then you can go to town on that if you want. What are those expectations? Are you setting your expectations? Okay, I mentioned this a couple slides ago. There's the vast potential for a runaway discussion. You know, if you have 20 students, each of them posts their first post, that's 20. Then you post a response to each of those students, that doubles to 40. Then they reply to you and you're up to 60, and they reply to each other and you're up to 100, and it goes, right? So as an instructor in an online course, your obligation is to post to each student's initial post and then to monitor the discussion from there on out. And to be present and to make sure you post, but you're not going to be in a situation where you're going to have thousands and thousands of posts. Okay. Touching on that, yeah, Donna, you asked, would you say that the focus can sometimes get compromised? Focused on the discussion, you mean? If you could type yes or no in there. The focus on the discussion, can that get compromised? Yeah, really good question. It's a hard challenge for instructors to bring the focus back when you, and I'm sure maybe you've experienced this, when you have to scroll up and down to try and find the part of the thread where the discussion is going. Okay, well, there's some easy ways to do that. There's some cheats that you can have where you can find the entire discussion thread in one place, and you don't have to scroll up and down to find where you are. But you're right, the focus can be compromised if you lose or if the momentum gets too high on a discussion thread. So as an instructor, what I find has helped me is if something gets out of control, I come back and I start a new thread completely separate from all of the other ones and say, okay, we just need to come to this thread now as a refocused piece. Do not go back to the other discussion threads anymore and add anything more to any of those. Start here and we regain our focus. So that's a trick that I've learned over the years to kind of bring everybody to a new discussion thread and say, do not go back and post anymore on any of those things. We need to focus back together. Okay. Oh yeah, there are instructors who have more than one class at a time, for sure, Patricia. Yep. Yep. You might have, I mean, the rules at the Chicago school are typically going to keep an online adjunct only having one, maybe two classes in any given semester. But yeah, you do get a couple at a time, and especially if you're teaching at different universities, right? If you're broadening your career path and checking it out, you could have a full load, and a full load, in my opinion, would be 5 classes teaching, which is kind of like a full load on ground. But you might be at different universities and logging on different places. Another challenge is how do you gauge feedback online? You're missing that face-to-face contact. We have that problem when you're texting somebody. Have you ever texted a friend or a loved one and then they come back at you and they're like, what are you talking about? Why did you say that? Because your text is lacking the emotion or the body language that you would have if you were actually talking to that person. You find the same thing in online learning. Does somebody mean something offensive, and how do you handle that, right? And how do you give feedback that's appropriate to online learning? And how much feedback do you give? I've had students who've come to me before and when I was a director of adjunct faculty, and they've said, okay, this instructor is in the course too much. You know, he needs to back off. So you want to be aware of that as well. You don't just want to be a rampant poster and post, yep, I agree, yep, I agree on everything that a student says. You want to be focused in your own feedback and your own teaching so that the students don't start to think that you're just there just to post something and make sure that you're making your time. Okay, so you've got to give focused feedback and kind of in a structured way. So again, those are some challenges. Those are some successes. I'm going to go back to TOPS again, and just so all of you know, the TOPS course is actually an 8-week course. There's kind of one extra week in there for a little wind down to the course. So it is an 8-week course. It basically is designed to give you about 40 hours of training time. So roughly about 5 hours a week you can expect in your work schedule, in your life schedule. Some of you may do more, some of you may do a little bit less depending on how quickly you type, how quickly you manage your time. But you should expect about 5 hours of work a week from the TOPS course. Donna also asked another question. As an instructor, do you mind when clarification is asked for if the student wants to make sure that how they took the feedback is how it was meant. Oh, I've never had a problem, giving additional feedback if they ask for clarification from me. I just want to make sure that they know that I'm on their side and I want to help them through the course. So if they need clarification, if something I said was taken in a way that they were offended or they felt bad or they felt something like that, I'll certainly clarify it and give them a little bit more professional development, so to speak, on how that feedback was working for them. Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, the TOPS course being 5 hours a week is what you should anticipate, with everything being done online. And it's really meant to give you a taste of what it is to take an online course and how the student is going to feel, right? Because you're going to be the instructor. But in the TOPS course, you are the student. And so it's designed to make you feel like you're in an online course. Now, it's not meant to destroy you or be an overwhelming course. It's a fun course. It's a professional course. We are all colleagues in the course together. We are not a student-teacher relationship type thing. And I facilitate one of the TOPS courses, and there's a couple other instructors who facilitate as well. You do not need to be ABD to take TOPS, although it's generally preferred, if you're going to take TOPS, that you've already begun the discussion at the Chicago School that you're going to be looking at teaching a course. Because those individuals are usually prioritized to take TOPS so that they can finish and then teach the course. So you might want to figure out exactly where you are in your process of potentially teaching. You may reach out to your department and determine, hey, am I going to be teaching for you? Is there something that is there an opportunity coming up? I'd like to take the TOPS course, but I want to make sure that I'm going to have something to come to after I take the TOPS course. So definitely have that conversation. If there's room, by all means, you're going to be given a spot in the class, even if you're not slated to teach something. But try to finagle it or make it happen so that you are possibly going to be coming into something after the TOPS course is over. The pay range depends on what they have in the budget, to be honest with you. So you're typically paid at an adjunct rate for teaching a class. The adjunct rate, I believe, is dependent on credit hours. And if you're teaching a class, let's say you're teaching a 4-credit hour class, and you're this is speaking to Patricia's question, if you're a first-time adjunct, never having taught before, you come in at the rank of instructor, and the Chicago School has it nice because you can, even as a part-time teacher, you get rank. You get instructor, assistant professor, associate professor, and then professor, even if you were part-time. So that's really cool. But if you come in at the rank of instructor, which you all will because you'll be first-time teachers likely, you're generally paid $1,119 per credit hour for a 4-credit hour course, which would be about $4,000 for one class spread out over a 7-week term. Okay? And that will change as you teach more. You teach more, you go up in rank. You become an assistant professor, you get a little bit more, and go from there. So that's nice too. Actually, based on where I've taught in my life, Chicago School is highly competitive and generous to its adjunct instructors, to its part-timers. When I was teaching adjunct in a language course, I was paid $2,000 for a 4-credit hour course, whereas the Chicago School will pay you $4,000. So really for 7 weeks. I was paid $2,000 for 16 weeks. So Chicago School's got a really competitive rate. Really nice. And I think most schools will have that rate too. So, yep, I think that was my last slide. If you have any questions, continuing questions, I'm going to put my email right into the chat box here. I'd be more than happy to talk with all of you. It should be pretty easy for you all to remember. It's smack@thechicagoschool.edu. My name is Stephen Mack. And then I'll hopefully see some of you maybe in your dissertation work as one of the dissertation writing experts on NCATE. So please reach out to me there too if you need help with any of your writing or any of your dissertating. I'm there for you as well.
Great,
Charles,
great.
let me
Dr.
give it back
Mack,
to you.
we have 6 minutes as far as the time, just for everyone to be aware of what the time. We can go over as long as we would need to, based on Dr. Mack's schedule and students that want to stay online. So feel free to
Yeah,
use
if there
the
are
chat.
other, yeah, absolutely. If there are other questions, please ask. It's been a great pleasure. I love talking about online teaching, so I'm hoping to see all of you in TOPS or teaching at some point at TCSPP or somewhere else. If you do end up teaching somewhere else, let me know. I love to hear your experiences so that I can continue to improve my presentation and give up-to-the-minute info on what's going on there. So thank you, everybody, for being part of it today.
Great. Let's see if there are any questions here. I don't see any.
Getting a lot of thank yous, which is great.
Yeah.
You're welcome, guys.
That's really
Thank you,
good.
thank you, thank you.
Just to let you all know, this is recorded for those who didn't hear that message earlier, and I will be posting it on the Career Services Archive video page. And I'm going to put a link to Career Services web page, to the archive page. That'll take you directly there. Let me get this up now. So it'll be posted here by the end of next week. Yes, it looks like everyone is logging off. I don't see any questions coming in.
Yep. Nope, I don't see any more questions.